So it's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree.
And Sister Corrine Kelly.
It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach is a faith-based organization designed to provide information and support while encouraging hope and faith. You can find out more about us by logging on to www.igbattmho.org. And today we're going to be talking about recovery. I don't know when it's going to be aired, but September is Recovery Month. And just let me read what Recovery Month is. Recovery Month promotes the societal benefits of prevention, treatment, and recovery for mental and substance use disorders, celebrates people in recovery, lauds the contributions of treatment and service providers, and promotes the message that recovery is in all forms is possible. Recovery Month spreads the positive message that behavioral health is essential to overall health, that prevention works, treatment is effective, and people can and do recover. Recovery Month has been championed by SAMHSA, which is a federal government mental health agency. The theme for September for this year's Recovery Month is Join the Voices of Recovery. It's worth it. And as we go through this particular broadcast, we're going to be answering that question, why is recovery worth it? Now, when we talk about recovery, for us, a definition that we came up with, as it applies to living with a mental illness or other negative life situation, is not the same thing as being miraculously healed or delivered.
Right.
Instead, recovery means living your life to the fullest in the midst of the negative situation that's going on in your life. This doesn't mean that you have given up or stopped praying. On the contrary, adopting a recovery mindset allows you to walk in a deeper level of faith and to experience more of the presence of God in your life. A person with a recovery-based mindset or faith-based mindset not only trusts God for healing, but they also trust God to order every aspect of their lives. And the key here when we think about recovery, when you think about recovery from a leg or other medical condition, you think about the symptoms being totally gone. But with a mental illness, that's not always the case. You may still have the symptoms, but in the midst of the symptoms, recovery is learning to live and to have a full life in the midst of all that. Instead, recovery means living your life to the fullest, like I said, in the midst of the negative situation that's going on in your life. So when we talk about recovery, we're not talking, like I said before, you're totally healed. It's just learning to trust, it's learning to live with the illnesses that you go through. Like I said, the theme for this September is recovery is worth it. Why? Recovery is worth it because you were made in the image of God and He has a purpose for your life. But there are certain barriers that can keep us from moving forward, that can keep us from recovery. Any comments so far on what I've said there before we go on to the next?
Okay, one of the things is when you were talking about recovery is worth it because you were made in the image of God and He has a purpose for your life. And you says, well, what purpose could God have for my life in a situation such as this? And I remember with Joseph, he said, you meant it for evil, but God turned it to good. So God already has a purpose. There can be some stumbling blocks, some snares, some things that can come up in our life. It's learning to overcome those things to be able to move forward. And yes, recovery is worth it because in coming into this stage of recovery, you no longer are dwelling on I'm sick.
Right.
This is my life. I can't move any farther. You know, you said in the midst of this, I can do better than what I'm doing now.
Yeah, right, definitely. And the thing is, that's what we got to have that mindset because there are certain things that can come to make us think that we can't do better. And we'll talk about just a few of the things. One of the things we've listed, number one, placing blame on the wrong thing. When we look at sometimes in the faith community, we want to focus and think of mental illness as all spiritual. And you should focus on the spiritual, and that's a good thing. But if all we do is focus on the spiritual and not look at the fact that this person needs medications, we're putting their blame on the wrong thing. Because medications will help. If you take the medications, you will be able to have a more fuller life.
Now, even right there,
Mm-hmm.
many times people think because they're taking the medications, it means is that part that you just said up top. It's not the same thing as miraculously healed or delivery. Okay, and when we're taking medicines, unfortunately, in such it's and I shouldn't say especially, but in the area of mental illness, we want to see this medicine as a cure-all. And because it does not become a cure-all, or even with the side effects, they says, well, okay, well, I don't need this medicine anymore. I don't care what kind of medicines that anyone takes, be it for mental illness or some other type of illnesses, there's always some side. Important that even, as she said, with the word recovery. In recovery, we're talking about a maintenance.
Right.
All right. And the thing would be is how important is my maintenance in going through with such a situation. Okay. So she was talking about focusing on or blaming the wrong thing, and that one of them was the medications or demons and sin and all those things until the mindset. Renewal, mind renewal, then a person can be stuck.
Right, be stuck. So again, we're talking about this is a recovery month, and the theme for recovery that the federal government has decided is join the voices of recovery. It's worth it. And on this broadcast, we ask the question why, and we're answering that question why. One of the whys because you were born and made in the image of God,
and
you have a purpose.
And in that purpose, I don't care what type of mental illness it is or how long you've had the mental illness. If you will allow yourself, God has placed education about the illness with people that can help you. Unfortunately, many times you see them as the enemy, or you don't want to give in that you can get. A person will give in it because they feel like I'm my own man, I'm my own woman, and not realizing every phase of our life we need somebody. Okay, and you need somebody here. And when we don't look at that individual as they have something that I need, and I need to surrender part of my will to get the help that I need, then that's another area of stuck. It's another area of being hindered, and you begin to see them more as an enemy instead of appreciating what they can give you to be able to help you to move forward.
Right, exactly. So again, number 2, and again, we're looking at things that can keep people from believing, keep people from recovering. Don't think you can. Low self-esteem.
Yes.
For a lot of people who are living with a mental illness, they've been living with a mental illness for so long. And back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s, and even now among some people's mindset.
Because of ignorance.
Right, ignorance. They think people with a mental illness can't recover, that they're stupid, they can't do certain things, they can't learn, that the symptoms don't get any better. So people with a mental illness, some of them have become afraid to even try.
And so even in that area, I personally want to apologize for us as a society for treating you so unworthily, for being I'm going to use this word, so disrespectfully, snubbing you or treating you meanly, or thinking, as she said, that there's nothing to you, that you're illiterate, you don't know anything. Those that I've met that have mental illnesses, they are intelligent.
Right, exactly. Because intelligence has nothing to do with a mental illness.
Absolutely. So you may not hear from anyone else, but I do want to say to you today, please forgive us for our ignorance, for not being willing to work with you to see where you are, because you might be dealing with this issue over here, but that one that is treating you may be dealing with something even worse because of their ignorance. So I say, I apologize to you today.
Because I think that's it. Because if you keep being, all through your life, hearing or even made you feel like you can't do it, well, we all make mistakes. And I think even if you're having a mental illness, you're going to make mistakes. And that's okay. That's part of being human. But because a person has a mental illness, they think because they make a mistake, then that's it. And other people treat them that way, just like what you were saying. So you get into the habit thinking, well, I can't do it. And that comes up with low self-esteem. Even for those people without a mental illness, low self-esteem can be an issue.
Yes.
If you're talking about substance abuse, many times people with substance abuse have made errors in judgment. spent money, made poor choices, and they think that now I can't make it. You know,
and see, that's where they're for lack of a better way of putting it, all of those things that you just named add insult to the injury that's there. But in reality, even someone without a mental illness, can do all the things you said, misuse of money, bad, low self-esteem, not knowing how to respect one another, and one of them is the environment that you're in. Too many people have fallen into a rut, is the word I'm going to use, because of the environment, because of those that are around them, because of they never hear words that you can do better, because they never hear I love you in the midst of everything. And I'm not going to say in spite of, I'm going to say in the midst of what you're going through, I love you. Because we don't always tap in to see what are your good qualities.
Right.
Okay?
What you can do.
Right. And because we're not tapping into your good qualities, we help you to hold on to those things that are negative that you're dealing with as a whole.
And that's so true, because... And I like what you said. We don't help you to do those things. And again, if I'm talking to someone, if you do have a mental illness, you want to learn as much as you can about your illness. Realize that you do might make mistakes. Get around people who have a mental illness or who don't, or people who encourage you. But you don't want to ever let anyone make you feel that you're less than, that you can't do something, or treat you like you're a child. There's a term that we call, it's called paternalistic. And you have a lot of quote-unquote professionals or even family members, and they all mean well, but they kind of take on this role as telling the person what they need to do, what they should eat, what they shouldn't do, and sometimes that can be too much.
Yes.
You can always take on this role like they're the parent, and the person with the mental illness is the child. And you have to understand, if you have a mental illness and you're listening to me, making mistakes, you can learn, you can move forward, and maybe slower than someone else, but you don't ever want to let another person make you feel like you can't or less than because of the mistakes or because of your illness.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me how much other people want to control, especially someone with a mental illness, want to control them. They don't want to dictate to them what they can and can't do. And usually, more so than what we realize, it's their own insecurities, and they need something or someone to control. And that's what happened. And so you're not going to find patience and endurance and long suffering in dealing with someone with a mental illness, because it's all about them, more so than they want to admit. Okay, we as in our society, we want to appear to have it all together. Okay, so in putting on that facade, it's easier to take control of somebody else's life as opposed to recognizing where this individual is, which brings up a spirit of insecurity in that individual, which still can be a mental and emotional situation, but it's being camouflaged.
And then that's part of the reason of the stigma, or the stigma, I'll use that word, surrounding mental illness. Because we live in a society, we want to appear that we have everything all together. We want to appear that everybody's perfect, there's no problems. And when you meet someone who reminds us that there are problems in the world, that, it is possible to have a mental illness, there are some people who don't know how to take that. And they treat the person, like you said, use the word unworthily, or they try to, or they belittle the person, or they just don't understand.
Totally disrespect.
Right, exactly. So I think it's so important, again, as you celebrate Recovery Month, you want to celebrate your recovery, where you've come from. Now, I was talking to someone just this week, and I said, well, think about where you were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they were in an inpatient psychiatric hospital long term. Now they have their own place. They're taking their medications. They're enjoying life. Talked to another guy. He has a mental illness, was in prison, also had some substance abuse issues. He got out. Here's the key. When you talk about recovery, he worked the program. His probation, parole, I get the two mixed up. When we get out of jail, his probation, parole got him in a halfway house. He didn't do like some of these other people. Well, I don't want to go in a halfway house. No, he followed the rules. He stayed in a halfway house. They got him to another supported living environment. This guy worked a supported living environment.
Mm-hmm.
He got into supported employment where they help him get a job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was able to get a license. He's
Mm-hmm.
working, and he came in, and he's going to start a nonprofit.
No, okay.
You know, I was like,
Wonderful.
wow, you know.
Wonderful.
So the thing is, recovery is possible. You
Mm-hmm.
don't let your fears or
Mm-hmm.
thinking about, you know, many people
Mm-hmm.
who've had a mental illness, who've had it a long time,
Mm-hmm.
can tell you stories about Prolixin
Mm-hmm.
and Prolixin and what's the other one? But back then,
Mm-hmm.
I say back then like it was just so long ago. I mean, even 80s, 90s, the medications aren't as good as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
But they can tell you the stories about, Miss Ornetta drooling and how they were so sleepy and this how they couldn't do anything,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
So when you're a person, if you're in that time frame, you still have those stories in your mind, thinking that you can't make it, and you can make it, and that's what we're here to tell you. You know, you can learn to manage your money. Yes, mental illnesses, the symptoms of mental illnesses, they vary. They impair functioning, but the level of function is different with each individual. But you can learn. It may take some people longer than others, but you can learn to manage your money. You can learn to shop for yourself. You can say, I don't want this today, this sandwich, I want this sandwich.
Right.
You can control, have some
Right.
control over your life.
And you may be sitting there thinking, well, that's just one in a million. Well, you can go on and be that one in that million.
That's right. There are so many, so many. Another thing that keeps people, fear. We're just fearful.
Okay, now this fear is, when I look at the word fear, we're talking about fear on both sides. Okay?
That's right.
Sometimes a person with mental illness, back to the first part I said, treated disrespectfully, the controlling thing is fear of us that don't have a mental illness. In the sense that cause us to treat you the way we do, adding again insult to the injury.
Right.
Your fear may be, I don't know what's going to happen to my life. I don't know how people are going to take me. I don't want anybody to know that I have this mental illness. I don't want them looking at me funny. All of those things. I wonder who already knows.
Right.
And again, back to the thing that she said, looking at the old negative things that have happened when you were off your meds, prayerfully will make you feel like, because I realized I did this when I was off, makes me have a better attitude that with the new medicines, I'm willing to try to get something that I don't do these things that I used to do. Or fear, I don't know, because I know what I did in the past, I know where I am right now, I don't know what to expect when I get over here, so I just won't do anything. That's not good either. Still talking about the fear. So we're encouraging you, let go of the fear. Make it up in your mind that it's time for me to move forward in my life. It's time for me to be more productive for me.
Right.
Many times we're fearful because we're not living up to someone else's expectations. Okay? No, I want you to get to make it up in your mind. I tell yourself, I am special. And God has something special for me, and He can handle me right where I am.
And again, that's so wonderful and so important. Family members, loved ones play a great role, as you know, in the life of a person living with a mental illness. And I was talking again, working with someone, and we were talking about taking medications, and she needed to get to the point where she could take her own medications, and her sister kept insisting on giving it to her. And she's like, Miss Ornetta, I can take my medication. But her sister remembered several years back when she wasn't taking her medication and the problems that they have. So to settle that, the sister said, I'm going to give you your medications. And now it was started to cause problems.
Yeah, because that's gonna build up resentment. Because you're not allowing this person to make mistakes. You're not. Even us, we don't always do everything right. Okay?
We forget to take medication sometimes.
Right. So why do we expect someone that if we make mistakes, why we do not leave room for someone with a mental illness to be able to make a mistake? Some of it is because we're concerned about how people gonna see me, not them. How you gonna see me?
Right.
Being involved with
being
a person like this.
What will people say?
Okay.
Yeah, and it's so important. So as family members, it's important to evaluate yourself, and family members, your important role. You play an important role. Normally, you're gonna be the first person that the doctor's gonna call, and you're gonna be the last person that they call. You're gonna be the one that after doctors walk away and social workers walk away, the person leaves their day program,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be one that has to deal with the problems or deal with the issue. And I get that. We understand that. But there's some point you want to have a balance. Because I always ask this question. If you're a family member and you're taking care of someone with a mental illness, or you're playing a big part in the life of someone with an illness, what will happen to you if you drop dead? Have you prepared your loved one with a mental illness to be able to take care of themselves? You know, have you allowed them to make the mistakes? Have you allowed them to know how to get money from the ATM? Something that's simple. Have you allowed them, you know, well, don't touch my stove. Don't touch. I don't want you around the stove. Well, if you die, they're going to have to learn how to cook. Have you allowed them to do certain things? So the key is not to prevent somebody from doing anything because you're afraid of what happened. What you want to do is begin to evaluate what can you do now, what they can't do, and begin to teach. You know, begin to allow them to do these types of things. So you don't ever want to get to a point where you feel like, you know, if I don't do it, it won't get done, because you could die and not be here. So always think about that. If you're a family member, you have of a loved one, you have a loved one with a mental illness, ask yourself this question: what would happen if I drop dead today? And it can happen. You can drop dead today, I can drop dead. And what would happen to your loved one? You want to kind of begin to think about those types of things. You know, it's so interesting. I have a cousin who has schizophrenia, not schizophrenia, and for years her mother had to do everything for her, and she felt like she couldn't do it. It was interesting when her mother died to see what happened. Her mother died, and like about a month later, you know, my mother heard somebody knock at the door, and it was my cousin. And I just wanted to drop something off. She was doing better. She was actually doing the things that people didn't think she could do. So many times, like you said, it's not that the person with the mental illness can't do it, is that we just don't allow them to do it because of our issues.
So we sometimes can be the one to cause them to be in the next one, in the rut.
Right.
We're in the rut because we will not allow them to be a human being. And you get so used rather than going through arguments or even allowing yourself to meet those expectations that you have of yourself. You say, well, I don't want to put them through nothing else, so I'll just let them keep on doing it and whatever. And you're cutting yourself short because you need to finally, in a nice way, say, at least let me try. Let me show you what I can do. Even with little children, we give them an opportunity to try. And then we say, well, okay, since you want to try it, let me show you how to do it a little better. We a lot of times don't give them that opportunity. So I may say this several times through this session that we're doing. I sincerely apologize. I know you'd love to hear it from that loved one that you're working with, but because you can, sincerely, and I can say this because I've dealt with she's told you about her cousin. Well, I've had a loved one as well that was dealing with, and still is dealing with schizophrenia. Unfortunately, his stubbornness would not allow him to receive the help that he needed, that I so dearly wanted to help him with. And now, you know, he's in a situation where we're just praying for him, okay? And it's had to be more outsiders to help him because he thought I was being too hard. But I felt like I knew the potential greater than what he was willing to display, because he got used to other folk laughing at him or looking for him, expecting him to do wrong, you know? And so, as I say again, some of these things that we're talking to you about, we can talk to you about it psychologically, we can talk to you about it medically, but we also can talk to you about it on a personal basis, okay? So don't think we're just blindsided talking to you. We want to let you know that, yes, there is a better way. Yes, there is recovery. So through all of this today, through my own personal experience, I may say to you several times, I sincerely apologize for, and you know, I feel for you for some of the things that you've had to endure. And we hope from this day forward that you are in expectations of looking forward to something greater and better in your life.
That's right. And the reason why we're going to go to Genesis 1:26. Let me read that. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.
And you say, what do you mean by in the image? When we talk about image, we're not talking about the outer form. We're talking about your inner man. We're talking about the creativity of your mind. We're talking about the emotions of your heart. You know, all these things that we're talking. This is the image part that we're talking about. He's already said, I know my thoughts of you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Now, who could better give you a good expected end than the one that made you in the first place?
And knows all about you.
Yes. Everything there is to know about you, inside and out, already know it. And this is what, when we talk about God saying, let us make us in our likeness, in our image, we're talking about an unconditional love. Not a love that's just going to love you as long as you do good. I don't care what or where or how tumultuous your life has been. God still loves you. And because of that, He has a purpose for that.
And that's the thing. That means He loves you despite of the fact that you may or may not be taking medication. He loves you despite the fact that you're hearing voices, that you're seeing things of your mood swings, your depression, your anger, irritability, no money, too much money, wherever you are. God loves you. But He loves you enough because He created you for a purpose. He doesn't just love you for you to kind of just be, oh, I'm loved, which is great. He loved you. He created you for a purpose, and that purpose was to bring Him glory. So how do I bring Him glory? You bring Him glory when, number one, when you fulfill the plan that He has for your life. And what's the plan? To bring Him glory. When you bring Him glory when you take medications that you need to take. Why? Because when you take medication, it puts you into a place biologically and chemically where you're able to do the things that you can do. You know, when you're able to feel like you're contributing. You know, any thoughts that come to you, negative thoughts, that make you think or feel and act like you can't make it, that you're less than what God says you are, that you're stupid, that you're inferior, that you're just a nobody, it makes you feel depressed. That thought is not a thought of God. That thought is not a good thought for you. That's a thought that you have to say, no, I'm going to replace that negative thought with a positive one. And what's the positive one? That God loves me. And if He loves me, it's for a purpose. I need to be doing something.
Even in the midst of that, you may feel like, well, I'm all alone. Nobody understands and nobody cares. In each and every breath that you take, that's God's breath in you. Okay? He didn't take His breath from you because you didn't take your medicine. He didn't take